I am Councilmember Eric Dinowitz. It is really a pleasure to be here with all of you. Before we begin the program, I want to call up John Paul Campbell, the nephew, to lead us in an opening prayer.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to say an opening prayer and want to thank everyone for coming out. Good seeing family here, friends, community members, people who we've passed by and saw. We just want to say love you, and let's say a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for everyone who's come to gather here today on such a momentous occasion to celebrate the legacy and achievements of my dear uncle and aunt. We thank you for the lives that they lived, the way in which that they were able to give back and pour into so many here and so many others all over the world, dear God. I ask that as we're about to go through this service, that it may be a blessing and that we may be able to share in love and laughter and great energy and remember all the great things that this location, at this space, and that these people have done is my prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge there are a number of family members here from the Adams family. Brandon Adams, of course, Lilka Adams, son and daughter of Betty and Lloyd. Geraldine Chinnery, sister of Lloyd. Sylvia Benjamin, sister of Lloyd. John Paul, who you just heard from. Corinne Campbell, niece of Betty and Lloyd. Glenda Campbell, Betty's sister, and Erwin Campbell, Betty's brother. And Irma Gibb, Betty and Lloyd's niece. So I'm looking at all of these faces, and it's really an incredible thing. We're here to celebrate the legacy of Betty and Lloyd Adams. And I think we all know Lloyd's carrot cake. Growing up, by the way, if any of you felt this way, what I did, I was a little scared of carrot cake because it's a vegetable. And so for 20 years of my life, I missed out on one of the greatest cakes we have here in New York. And that's probably one of my biggest regrets, is not trying out the cake earlier. And people come from all over the country just to try this cake. And that's a very, very special thing. And now it's the thing we all bring to our families on the holidays. To say, I love you to my wife, I bring her a Lloyd's carrot cake. That's what she knows I really care, because it's a special cake. And if that were what this was, that would be special, because it's a special store. But that's not the only reason we're here. We're here for the people that made the store. And I had the opportunity before starting this event to speak to so many of you. And each of you had your own different special story about how the Adams family touched your lives. I met your coach, right? I met people who opened the stores while Lloyd was selling cupcakes in Harlem. And that's the story of a business being built, but a business not just based on making some money, but about making relationships and building community. And I didn't know Lloyd, but I knew Betty. And I know at every single community event, she was there supporting anyone who would also give to the community. And it's a very special thing to have a business and to have people who believe in a community. And we see so many of the big box stores going up, and so much of our communities here in New York City becoming about earning that money that we lose a lot of that community feel. And so that's why it was so special that we had the two of them in our community every day, contributing to our community. Before we continue, I do want to, thank a few people. I think you'll hear from some of them, but I want to acknowledge the Department of Transportation. There were some bureaucratic hurdles in getting the sign at this location, and Brandon's nodding his head. He's like, it was a bit of a nightmare. But our Borough Commissioner, Anthony Perez, and Paul Ochoa from DOT really came through, and I want to publicly acknowledge and thank them. And in the process, we got a new Broadway sign at this location. I also want to thank CB8. This was actually, I believe, the first street co-naming that I proposed in the City Council, and CB8, Community Board 8, was right there alongside passing unanimous after unanimous resolution in support of this co-naming. And I see that we have Sergio Villaverde from the Bronx Community Board, as well as a new member, Johanna Edmondson, who you're going to hear from in a bit. I would now like to call up one of the newest members of Bronx Community Board 8. You know her as the owner of Female Fight Club. She's our Democratic State Committee woman, someone who I became very close with during COVID as we were trying to clean up the parks right here, Van Cortlandt Park. I would like to introduce Johanna Edmondson.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm hoping I'm not going to cry here. This is a tough one. Actually wrote everything down so I can kind of... sure, I'll take the microphone. Is it on? I think it's like, hello? Yeah. Thank you all for being here today, for celebrating this amazing occasion. And I'll keep it brief. I've been a customer for Lloyd's Carrot Cake long before I moved to Riverdale, over 20 years ago. Often picking up carrot cakes for birthdays and family events. However, I really got to know Betty, the owner of the carrot cake, during one of our nation's darkest times. Throughout March 2020, regardless of the weather, I would exercise across the street and across the street on the Tortoise and the Hare steps. While Betty opened her shop to provide us with delicious carrot cakes, as we both arrived early each morning, we developed a friendship. One memory that stands out is when Betty generously lent us her brooms to clean the steps, allowing us to set the mats amidst all the garbage and stuff that was laid there overnight of overuse of the park. We even had to hide the brooms on the trees right behind you for safekeeping. Betty later became our first sponsor, providing complimentary ginger shots for one of our events and expressing that she desired to promote her healthy creations of the ginger shots. When the park department relocated us, she even emailed them, hoping we can return and exercise right on the steps again. Each visit to her shop left me in awe of her accomplishments and her awards, and even featured in Oprah's magazines. Moving forward, in November, we honored Betty with a plaque recognizing her resilience, dedication to our community. That evening, she texted me to thank me for the honor and suggested we have dinner together. I was thrilled to connect with her as a fellow businesswoman. But weeks later, I received the heartbreaking news from her good friend Janet that Betty had passed away. And I was in disbelief. The loss felt profound, and I struggled to understand why it hurt so much. Why her loss felt so close to me. I quickly reached out to VCP, hoping they can dedicate a bench or a tree or something. But unfortunately, that did not work out. Determined to honor Betty and Lloyd's legacy, I saw support from our councilman, our Bronx Borough President, Vanessa Gibson, and our son, Brandon, her daughter, Linka, RMSA, Kiwanis, and many of my friends, Maria and Pam, they're probably here as well. And together, we made this happen. Today, we celebrate Betty and Lloyd's in a significant way, renaming the streets in honor of them. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming.
Thank you, Johanna. And not to embarrass her, but Janet's here, if she mentioned, right? I saw her. I don't know. Janet's in? Yeah, she's right there. So she's here.
Give a wave.
Give a wave to everyone. Say hi. Sure, then come up here. Take the mic.
Yes. Hi, my name is Janet Simpson. I have worked with Betty at Time Warner Cable, and she was my vice president. And she's one of the best supervisor, manager, vice president that I have ever worked with. And that position did not get to her head. I know Lilka, and I know Brandon, and I know Lloyd very, very, very much. And I can remember the day when I heard that Betty passed away. It was like my life was ended, because she was more than a sister. She was more than anything to me. And God, I leave everything in your hands, because I cannot question the Lord. He knows best. Thank you.
Thank you.
another good friend of hers is here, Martha Sanchez.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call up someone else who has a long history of serving our community, our great assembly member, Jeffrey Dinowitz.
And that's from a very unbiased source. So, I can't believe we're here, but I'm so glad so many people are here. First, let me just say thank you to Councilman Eric Dinowitz for passing the law that changes the street name or co-names the street in honor of the Adams. And everybody else who helped make it happen and advocated for it. So for those of you who know me, know that I have a habit of bragging about the fact, and it is a fact, that I have the best district in the state. And one of the things I always cite is the fact that we have Lloyd's Carrot Cake, best cake anywhere, right across the street from Van Cortlandt Park, best park anywhere. I mean, it's just amazing, and it's certainly fitting that we have such a beautiful day today. So several years ago, I forget what the event was, but there was an event here. It was probably an anniversary of how long it's been here, and I presented a proclamation from the State Assembly honoring Lloyd's Carrot Cake, honoring Betty. And one of the things I said, and this is true, when I was growing up, my mom always told me, eat lots of carrots, it's good for the eyes. So I decided to follow her advice and eat lots of carrot cake. And I try not to overdo it, but people everywhere know about Lloyd's Carrot Cake. It's not just a local business, although it is a local business and a great business. I guess it's national. I mean, it's been written up in the New York Times, and everybody loves it. We are so fortunate to have a business like this here, but the business, it's the people who make it. Now, I knew Betty, and she was such a wonderful person in our community. She was involved with everything. She sponsored events. She donated. She gave her time. I mean, she's exactly what we talk about when we talk about community-minded people, especially business people. And that's why it was so fitting that Johanna Edmondson talked about her, because here we had two businesswomen who contributed so much to our community. But I just want to finally say that I'm very grateful for her, and I didn't know Lloyd, but I know that the two of them built up this tiny, small place is a huge institution for our community and well beyond. So I just want to again say thank you to everybody who's here, and this is really a very joyous occasion.
Thank you, Assemblyman. I would also add that when I go down to City Hall, my colleagues, when we have those meetings, my colleagues are very upset when I don't bring carrot cake. The cake is very well known. She's very well known. And so when we were passing this street co-naming, it's hundreds of names in a single piece of legislation from all over the city. But this was one that really stood out to a lot of our colleagues. She was very well known, again, not just for the business, but for what she gave back to the community. I'd like to now call up Bernard Palmer. I'd like to, right here.
Good afternoon now. Pleasure to be here. This is a great moment. It's a great moment. This is something that's well deserved. I've known Lloyd since I was 17 years old. So we played ball together. We played with them, against them. We was on a team down on West 4th Street called the Adams family. Harold back there, House, and Tom. So we all played together in Harlem. So he started it out of his house. We used to play ball at Columbia, and then after Columbia, we would go to his house to watch the Knicks game, because at that time, cable was only in Manhattan. And so we would watch the game, he made the cakes, and like you, I was never going to eat a carrot cake. And then they said, eat it, tried it, and ever since then. So he did it out of his house, and like I said, like 74, 75. He's been doing that. And then he just went out. He didn't have an MBA, Harvard business plan for his business. He just went out grassroots, took the cakes to restaurants in Harlem and said, hey, try it. If you like it, we'll do business. And that's how it grew. So I know him and Betty looking down and very proud. And Lika, his daughter, Brandon, I know when they was born. So, but it's a great moment. Thank you.
And now a man who needs no introduction. I'm just kidding. I've had the pleasure of working very closely with Brandon. My office working closely with Brandon on this co-naming, and I think we know that Betty and Lloyd don't just make good cakes; they make good children, because that same feeling, that same value, that it's not just about the cakes you made; it's what you give to the community, is a value that is shared by Brandon and Lilka. So I want to introduce, you all know him, you coached him, you're friends with him, you watched him grow up, Brandon Adams.
Thank you. Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, good. Number one, thank you all. Thank you for coming out and just showing your love and support and appreciation and celebration of our parents, Betty and Lloyd. This is a really tremendous day, and like Eric said earlier, there were a lot of hurdles to bring this to life, but we got it done, and there's so many people to thank. We're eternally grateful to so many people. Eric Dinowitz and his staff and his office, Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz, Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson, the entire Community Board 8, Joanna Edmondson. It's just like, in the climate that we're in today, like, there were so many steps and so many votes, and for each vote to be unanimous, I think really is just a testament to who my parents were and what they meant to this community. And community is something that we've talked about throughout the day, and it's something that was very important to my parents, and it's something that makes this business thrive. And this is a very special place. Riverdale is a very, very special place. And as great as the cake is, I think, Riverdale kind of really helped bring it to a whole nother level. I was lucky enough to just come back from a trip where I was at a wedding with a bunch of native New Yorkers, and we were all talking about just where to live, where to raise kids, and they're talking about New York, and they're like, in New York, there's no sense of community. You're just in there in your own silos, and this is really the outlier. So I'm eternally grateful for this community, and just so many times from each of their passings. When my dad passed, I was a freshman at Manhattan College, and Manhattan College wrapped their arms around me. And I still see my coach here today. I see Manhattan College here today. When my mom passed, Riverdale wrapped their arms around us. And I'm just eternally grateful and so thankful. And I'm so thankful to my parents for the legacy that they've cemented. And I thank every one of you guys for coming out here today. And I'm eternally grateful for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. The last person that's going to speak before we unveil the street sign, our borough president, Vanessa Gibson. And I just have to say, Borough President Gibson is a presence here in Riverdale. I feel like she's here once a week, but maybe it's more. But it's not often a borough president is coming to every street co-naming. What Borough President Gibson does is she develops incredible relationships with everyone throughout the Bronx. And I'm grateful to be working alongside her. And I would just say that, in Riverdale, I think, part of the community, part of what I'm grateful for in the community is elected officials that we can work very closely with to help support our community. And that includes Assemblyman Dinowitz and Borough President Gibson. And so I want to ask if the Borough President would, me first, if the Borough President would share a few words.
Woo! Thank you so much, Council Member. Good afternoon, community. Good afternoon, Riverdale. Can we give it up and make some noise for Miss Betty Campbell? Can we give it up for Lloyd's? Yes. For the family, for the foundation. Can we give it up for her children? Brandon and his sister and the entire family. So I am so grateful to be here, and I'm actually humbled because I consider myself family. I want to thank Councilmember Eric Dinowitz for facilitating the street co-naming. You all know that street co-namings happen at the city council level, and we don't name streets after just anyone. We name it after people who have served their community, who have sacrificed for their community, who live for their community, and who love their community. And that is what Betty represented. And I want to thank the Female Fight Club, which Betty belonged to, Joanna Edmondson and the entire team who loved on Betty. She was a part of the Female Fight Club and so many other parts of our borough. I want to also thank Community Board 8. Thank you, Community Board 8. And I have to tell you, and Brandon knows that I spoke to Betty 2 days before she transitioned. I had a conversation with her Wednesday night, and it was 2021, and I was running for borough president. I was a council member in the West Bronx, and I called her as a friend, as someone who had worked closely with Betty and her team at Lloyd's Carrot Cake, the famous Lloyd's Carrot Cake, the best carrot cake in the world. And it was during that conversation that I remember Betty said, "You have my support. I'm always there for you. Let me know what I can do to be of support." And also, I want to make sure that you know that my heart is in this community. My heart is in Riverdale, in Van Cortlandt, in the North Bronx, in any part of the Bronx, and anything we can do to help your work, we want to do that. And she gave me a contribution that night. And then I learned that Friday that she would ultimately transition doing what she loved, delivering cakes, delivering cupcakes, working. And my heart has truly never been the same. I remember her celebration of life, Brandon, at Abyssinian, and she was truly a friend. And I'm so glad that this street co-naming is happening because it is well deserved for a woman who did so much, carrying on the legacy of her husband, of taking over when she lost her partner and saying, "I can't let the legacy die with my husband, but I have to keep it going for my children, for my son, for my daughter, to make sure that people could see the work, the talent, right, that Lloyd's Carrot Cake has provided for these years. Not just the best carrot cake, but look at the jobs that Lloyd's Carrot Cake has provided. Look at the community relationships that we have started and built upon. That's what Betty represents. And so I'm so glad to be here and letting the family know that I'm always there for you, for Lloyd's, for anyone that needs to do this work on behalf of Betty. Thank you, Council Member. May she continue to live on in our hearts. May we continue to carry on her legacy here at Lloyd's Carrot Cake, at Female Fight Club, anywhere in the Bronx. We're going to make sure that we carry on the life and the legacy of our dear sister, Betty Campbell Adams. And Lloyd Adams as well. Thank you so much, everyone, and may God bless their spirit. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to now invite Lilka, Brandon, Assemblyman Dinowitz, Borough President Gibson, and the Adams family to unveil a brand new street sign.
Slide it, slide it, slide it easy, slide it easy. There you go. Yay! I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead, you go, man. That's good. That's real good.